With Steiner, we're it's two of the co-founders. That's where somebody else is holding down the fort over in the exhibit hall.
That's Steiner. Who are you?
Yeah, so that is a good segue. Let's do introductions.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm Andrew Hodgson, but I mostly go by Steiner. I manage the island group densetsu.exe, and that's mostly what I do. I did translate for 10 years, like Steins Gate, in another world, my smartphone, that kind of stuff, Somnium files. But now I mostly manage densetsu.exe, Mint, Sticky, and TV. So yeah, that's me. And you basically post on Twitter.
And then for those of you who don't know me, which is probably a lot of you, I'm more behind the scenes. I'm tinfoil. What I've done before this was, he mentioned a bunch of visual novels. I used to work for Jazz as a contractor way back when, in those days. That's kind of how we sort of met. All three of the co-founders, we worked on visual novels at one point. But what I generally do for densetsu and Setsuna production is all the white-collar people, so accounting, budgeting.
Backbone of logistics.
Generally, all the kind of work that I do. Some of the technical stuff, so like the densetsu.exe website, that's all me. That's why the news is hard to update on that website. Why the RSS feed is updates in the past rather than current most of the time. But yeah, that is kind of my role inside of here. I'm the one that files the taxes.
Let's go
So that's kind of our capacities and kind of what our backgrounds coming into this. The primary thing that Setsuna Production does nowadays is help densetsu.exe. So they've got creative goals. From left to right, we have Victoria Roman, Nick Fantone, and Phoebe Chan. This is their key visual, their key debut visual, which is really, really good. There's a link to put it on that. And so there's the website if you would like to know more. While clapping as opposed to Australia, where you were like, hi, test pigs, or guinea pigs. So we did trial this panel sort of at Smash. Any of you happen to be in Sydney, like to? No, it's expensive. We trialed this panel at Smash to just make sure that we got it squared away. Yeah. So many of you might be asking or thinking, okay, like, how do we? And so basically there are three. The first one is that this kind of doesn't happen, right? There's kind of not usually a set of people that is small enough to be able to call essentially all the shots, right? So like in terms of the creative direction and like how densetsu works, there are two parties. There's densetsu, there's Steiner, and then it's whether we can pay for it, right? And so because we're not a large multinational corporation, right? Because the friction to reaching a decision and consensus, whether everybody's okay with stuff, is pretty low, we can just kind of stop. That's nice. And by we, I mean everyone. Second thing is that we don't want you to waste your money, right? So a lot of you in the audience are secretly VTubers, every single one. And many of you are kind of probably curious, right? About like, okay, what does it take to make something like densetsu.exe, right? Like I want my thing to sort of look like that, or I'm thinking about starting a group or getting a group together to do something like this, right? And this is sort of like in the sort of like day of business panels on Sunday at Offkai, right? With Mahler and legal panel, and starting us off. We want you to have a realistic expectation of what kinds of money you have to spend or skills that you have to not spend that money, time, those kinds of things, right? Because in the end, densetsu can be thought of as an entertainment product, right? Because if you cannot sell an entertainment product, you're just going to lose money. That's kind of how the dream dies. So being deliberate and making sure that we have sort of like telling you how we put that together is probably a useful thing for the industry at large. And then we are selfish in specific ways. So all the things that we are talking about today are things that we get value of ourselves, right? Like there are essentially, you can imagine a version of these slides with like double the amount of hidden slides. The reason is there's things we're able to talk about, there's things we're not able to talk about because we didn't ask them, or it's a sensitive matter, or like we need legal clearance, all these other complicated things, right? And so we get lots of internal value out of sort of like inspecting the situation and how like, oh, what went well, what went wrong, what specifically can we talk about, what can't we talk about, that kind of thing. And so, as we do this, this is essentially it, right? We're going to go sort of in chronological order about kind of concerns and stuff. We're going to address the very large big elephant in the room of deciding Setsuna.exe, right? Like you can't, it's part of their story, right? Day 1, which is, oh, we signed them. Day 60, which is, okay, they debuted. And then some closing thoughts and Q&A and some announcements at the end to help sort of, because we came from visual novels, we can't do a secret. So,
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Sure.
Please and thank you.
Yeah. So so that's the layout that we have right now. Any questions before we get started? Nope. All right. Cool. So in the before, we actually needed to do something, right? So Sekai Project, which is the sister company, Setsuna Production and Sekai Project share the same two initials. They were dedicating resources to Ayami Sensei, which is Nick's eldest mom, at ASEN, at Anime Central 2024-2025. And if you happen to be sort of in the know on that sort of situation, the gist is she was the line user, right? Like, it was like, oh my god, we only sent 2 people, that's a mistake, right? Those kinds of things. And so it started becoming more of a thing for Sekai Project to have to manage, right? And it wasn't like their main thing, right? They're just like, oh yeah, let's help this artist out. We know her management, we know her, blah, 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 right? And it started getting a little too big for one company to do this like a side, right? And so we're like, okay, we need to make something, right? Secondly, Ayami was going to do that Offkai Expo 2025. For those repeat attendees that saw the lines at that, across the hall, and the clearance of like 2 hours to get to the end of the first day's line. So sorry about that. And then Phoebe also, Phoebe Chan of Densetsu, not at Densetsu at the time, right? Was booked at Offkai Expo 2. And so we're just like, okay, and then both of you are going to Expo. So we're like, okay, you're going to generate enough revenue that you have to file taxes. This is probably a problem. So you're like, okay, we need to do something, right? Let's go form a company, let's start doing things properly, right? Let's do actual accounting, those kinds of things. And then shortly after So don't go too hard. Don't go too bad. The thing with VShojo is that the thing that we say is that VShojo, when they proposed the idea, hey, do you want to get people together, right? It allowed them to dream, right? It allowed them to think of a better future. It's a shame that they did not have the resources to do so, but it happened, right? They had these plans. They were going to form like what their lives would be afterwards. It's just that, you know, the awkward part of it not happening is a bit of an issue. And so what we decided was, okay, well, big mess, right? There's a big mess. We have to clean up the mess, but more specifically, Steiner here, right, was obviously privy to a lot of what was called, I believe, Project MVP at the time. As Phoebe's manager. So he was.
Yeah, so like obviously, you know, when they were all individually independent and sort of signed to join VShojo, I'd been Phoebe's manager already for a while. So, you know, with her idol stuff going around the US circuit, that kind of thing. So I was obviously involved in all the meetings. I was involved in the handover. I was basically just, you know, waiting to hand over the reins, basically. It's like, okay, great. Like, she's going with this company. It's it's gonna be they're part of a big group. It's gonna be great for her. And then, you know, when everything fell apart, I was, you know, directly involved in the collapse of the communication chain and all of that stuff. So it, you know, it basically just fell upon us that we have a situation here that isn't what can we do?
Yeah, and I do also want to take the opportunity to emphasize that, right? Like, in terms of their past here, like this specific portion of their past, they want to move on. So we ask that you also move on too, because they said so. So it happened. File it away. Maybe learn from it too if you want to inspect it a little bit more. But that's in the past. They have their own thing now, right? So there's that. But as part of the explosion, part of everything falling apart, Steiner and sort of us by proxy, we're made aware that several well-capitalized companies offered to pick up the pieces. So we were just like, okay, well, people are like trying to, I don't want to say to get on the rebound on this one, right? But they're just like, oh, that was a good idea. What if we did it, right? A lot of people had that idea. And that happened with various other parts of the company. And so we kind of asked ourselves when these proposals were going out, we're like, could we do it too? Like, what do we lose? What's the problem with just like saying, hey, you want it, right? And so this is a slide. We put a pitch deck together to densetsu.exe to say like, hey, you want to do this? And then they asked for more details, and we were like, oh shit, now we have to like actually make a plan instead of saying, are you interested? And so as a sort of peek at the timeline of how quickly this developed, you can see on the bottom right, in really small blue text, July 2025, right? So things moved extra fast, and we sort of like got filled with interest.
Yeah, I distinctly remember being at an Airbnb for in DC for Idle Harmony, the show that Phoebe was performing there, and basically we had a meeting with them, and things were starting to look positive. And I was like, oh shit, wait, hold on. I'm like pacing around the room going, wait, hang on, managing one's kind of tough already though. So I just distinctly remember absolutely panicking in that moment because things were possibly looking good.
And then when we did the sort of like the call to do the pitch, I was in a hotel at a customer offsite in Minneapolis. So I was doing this on like the 14th floor of the Hilton room after escaping from a dinner. So I was like, oh, we're doing it live. Right, so it was a fun little journey of like, oh, it's happening. Oh, it's happening while we're doing things. Oh, okay. So we asked them, right? Like, would you be interested? And they said maybe. We put the pitch together, and then we gave them space to decide, right? And so the way that we did this, or presented to them, is like, okay, Setsuna production, Setsuna program. 3 axes of sort of evaluation, right? The differentiators, and this is very business talk, so if you're starting to like glaze over, the differentiators, what makes us different from their other options, right? And our strengths, like what do we think we're going to be really good at? And then we were also very frank and very honest with them, but like here are our weaknesses. We're not.
Yeah, it was a big thing for us because we definitely wanted to help them in any way we can, but we wanted to make sure that they had a full view of all of their options. Like we wanted to make sure that we would be completely fair. Like the worst thing that we could have possibly done after that collapse was like sell them a huge dream and then not deliver on it, right? So we wanted to make sure, well, for one, I rely on Tim to make everything realistic because I say a lot of shit. He basically, he's my grounding rod here. He keeps me on earth, you know, chained to the ground. It's horrible, but you know, someone has to, right? Someone has to. But yeah, so we really wanted to make sure that we were giving them an even view of everything, because it was important to us that, like, if they did go with another option, the project MVP thing, the densetsu thing, as long as they were happy and in a good place, that was fine by us. But we also wanted to make sure that because their stuff is so specific with the otaku subculture, the early early 2000s denpa kind of feel, because it was so specific, we kind of wanted to make sure that whoever was handling them knew that stuff. So that was important to us.
Yeah. I'd also say that like part of this was also in the evaluation from like my end, right? It was like, if there really is a better option, awesome. That means I don't have to like spend any money to do it. But we were just like, well, I mean, it's not our sort of place, right, to decide what's best for a person, especially if they're acting rationally. So we're like, well, you've got guns and we've got brains, and they seem to work. So yeah, sometimes. We found that out after. So. And then they picked us. Right? And then we panicked. And then I get to tell you that we actually started working on it for it. Right? So one of the things that was, and so this is the all these slides, was basically Phoebe was already impacted, right, in various ways. And we were like, okay, we're going to help you out with other conventions anyway. We're the ones to help you with this process, right? Whether you select us as management folks or not, doesn't matter. Right? And so we found a lot of the legal and fiscal stuff that we had to figure out. We had to figure out for Phoebe anyway, so we sort of already had a shortcut into figuring out for the others. And so the big things were find out what was worked on, what the status of that was worked on, right? So like, did somebody work on it without payment? What does it mean, right? That kind of thing. Legal separation terms, right? Because there were essentially legal papers signed and contracts that were signed, and separation of those contracts after you sign them, right? Because it is still a company, right? It exists still to this day. And we had to clear intellectual property rights, right? Like, does densetsu.exe actually belong to them? I know what they were told, but does it actually belong to them, right? Those kinds of things that are very in the background, very annoying, frankly, for a lot of creatives. That's kind of like part of my day job, so I'm like, sure, why not? All of those things had to happen. And then also, after it started becoming more real and real, we're like, oh man, I actually have to hire some lawyers. And so writing a management contract after we started seeing it get closer and closer and be like, and figuring that out. So that was sort of a period of time where this was sort of distributed before and during sort of the signing. And so we had a plan, right? We met with them, we talked to them, and we asked, like, okay, we're going to solve the problem of how to make densetsu.exe real. And there are four sort of big axes to these, four big things that we wanted to address. The first one is the V part of MVP didn't exist. So we had to make that exist. So Victoria Roman debuting as a VTuber. The second is the full production cycle of a new original song, 40 song, is what VTubers call it. Resurrecting the debut asset pipeline for stuff, VTuber modeling, all these other things that have to happen to make a VTuber new, or make a new VTuber, rather. And launch merchandise to pay for like some of it, hopefully. And so those are sort of the four things that we had to address. And one of the tools in the toolbox, right, that you can use, and it's very, very sharp, it's like a scalpel, is to work backwards, right? So like, you write the thing that you want to do, right? You make an announcement. You're like, what do I want when densetsu.exe debuts? What does it actually look like? What are the pieces? How do you put the pieces together? That's the see if you can do it part, and that's the hard part, right? Because if you underestimate one or two pieces of the pipeline, or like, oh, this takes 2 weeks, it takes 2 months. Like, those kinds of things are the dangerous part. And you just look at what you've written, revise it until you see if you can do it, and you're like, that's a little too bit ambitious, or this isn't ambitious enough. You revise it to do more or less, or whether it fits correctly, right? And the hard part, right? How many of you have played a real-time strategy? All right, bunch of nerds. And so, in general, you can think of it as a bunch of bars and numbers inside of an RTS game, right? Well, a lot of them, actually, so like it's more like calculus, right? And see if you can do it means utilizing resources, right? This is a very like inhuman way to evaluate an issue, but like this kind of works. You have time. You have skills and people. You can sometimes accommodate for lack of skill or people, right? You have tools that you have, like, so are you using GIMP or are you using Photoshop? Are you using Paint.net? Those kinds of things, like what exactly are these things really good at? And then money, because money does solve a lot of problems. It's just when you don't have the people, you have to spend the money. Or if you don't have the time, you have to spend the money. And so all of these things in balance have to happen. So for example, the MD that Densetsu debuted, that could have been fully animated. We had the money, we had the skills, we had the people to do it. It's just that if we used it all on the MD, we couldn't use it on a lot of other things, right? Like you have to just put it into balance, right? You don't want to starve parts of the debut. Like you have real constraints, 60 days, and have to figure something out, right? So writing the announcement should look like going back, trying to reevaluate it as time goes on. Those are the kinds of things. And so there's already a plan, right? They already thought a lot about what they wanted to be. And the realistic issue is that we couldn't resolve it. We had 60 days first off, so many of the things in the pipe would take more than 60 days to actually happen. But we gave Vicky full creative control, and we're like, hey, who do you want to be? Like, this is you, this is your VTuber, this is your career. Like, if you want to leave Setsuna production, this is still going to be you. Like, this is going to live past us if they choose to. And so we help them make the hard decision. Right? Cutting ideas due to time or budget or risk. So like if you're stacking 3 different artists on top of each other to make something real, you better be confident that it's going to hit, right? That you have to make sure that all of the entertainment product that you want is realistic. And if it's your identity, right, that can be really hard to decide. And then also the other funny thing is when you're a corporation, money is much easier to go all the way up than all the way down with. So I have a credit limit at one time, $400,000. But usually vendors are really on time when you pay them, right? Like if you're just like, hi, when can you work on this? And they're like, oh, in about a week. And you're like, what if I paid you full in right now? They're like, oh, like 2 days from now. So those kinds of things are where companies sort of have a very large advantage over independence. We want to be able to give her that advantage so that she has best. And so debut happened, right? Otherwise these YouTube thumbnails would not exist. Her debut and the Night Parade original song that she did. And then next we have the new Ori song, the new original song. We had ideas, and we need to find 3 things: the composer, music video production staff, and then US-based music publishing. So third one's a bit hard, but there is a book. There is a book about it. I forget the name of the book, but it's like sort of like the music production Bible or something. You can get it through your local library, like I did. $7. Well, I paid taxes. But we found Umiya Neta in Neta-san. He was kind of around at Offkai for a little bit, and did very cool things like Macross and a lot of Masaki songs, but also did the Papa Choo Choo Blah Blah song. So I put that there. Yeah. And then resurrecting the pipeline. And so this was where sort of the most like anxiety and consternation happened, right? Because when you tee up artists to work on a big project, right, you're like, oh, I'm about to do something for VTuber secret project. It sounds really cool, especially 1 year, right? And so they were teed up to work debuts on it. They're like, oh, come on, do this. And they're like, you can do that. Let's contact the artist. And everybody was teed up to work on stuff. And then when the company collapses and explodes in front of everyone, usually you're like, well, I have to pay the bills. I got to do something, right? And that's where we had to find, organize, and contact a lot of the folks that would have worked on these things.
Yeah, a lot of it was sort of picking up the pieces and following trails, just like, you know, this artist was contacted here, or like this kind of thing. I will have to say, I want to give a shout out to Panini, who worked with VTuber. She helped the girls a lot in the aftermath, and she helped us compile a fairly exhaustive list of pretty much everyone that was, almost everyone that was contracted for art, music, etc. So once we brought that list together, it was kind of sort of like, oh, well, here's the financial reality.
Yep. And so to help find and organize and contact them, that's fine. If you're here, I don't know.
I don't think they use it.
but round of applause for Panini. There was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff. And what we found basically in them is that most were able to work it right, but others were not. The entertainment product, the vision, the creative vision that they had to change. People had to pay their bills to do something. And then, who here recognizes what this code is? So this is a quote from Your Sleep, right, from Longstreet. And water can flow or it can crash is a quote that sort of symbolizes the idea that water takes the form of any container, that you have to be very flexible. You have to be like water, where you have to be flexible. It can either flow nicely through something or it can crash against like a brick wall, right? You can choose which one you're going to be. And so the debut itself, right, had initial vision, an initial creative vision. And as things became possible, impossible, things got done ahead of schedule, behind schedule, it just changed, right? And it was all due to the reality of making stuff. And one of the big things that we did was we sort of premeditated backup plans, right? So like, okay, if something goes wrong, what do we do? Because it is easier to sort of make those decisions, not in a panic, especially if you're like, this seems really risky, this is a big piece of pie. It'd be hard, like if we got into that position, right? We'd be absolutely stressed out. And so being able to say like, okay, if something doesn't happen by some date, right, we automatically do something else. And who knows what a drop dead date is, by the way? Like from, like in its original context. Okay, cool. Found somebody that knows all. So basically a drop dead date is a date by which a contract, like in the original context, is a date at which a contract's provision automatically comes into play, right? So if you, for example, do not perform services by a particular date or time, you automatically owe money, right? Like that's your penalty. Now the invoice has already, you signed the fact that an invoice is coming out to charge you for a late fee, right? That kind of thing. So we essentially had drop dead dates. We're being like, if this doesn't hit, if this isn't completed, we don't get this file by this time, we're automatically doing something else. If it's late, sure, we don't care. We're going to do something else because we have to make this debut happen.
Yeah, a lot of it really did come down to the wire, to be honest, like as far as the debut date goes. Like even by the time VShojo was publicly sort of revealed to be, not happening anymore. Phoebe's model was like not actually complete yet either. So like we had to really go in on a lot of this stuff, like Vicky's design stuff as well. Like a lot of the assets were just completely left hanging by a thread. So picking up that was a lot of juggling basically. Just a lot of nope.
Yep, that's just PTSD. This is again automatically. Yeah, so a lot of this, right? Like you have to be very flexible, especially if like you're doing something really ambitious, especially if you're incurring such a lot of execution. And so, day 60 happens, because why would I be doing a panel? And we have Victoria Roman Sadie. Ninth grade.
I remember one really cool thing about Vicky's that debut ninth grade song. I think she basically did the whole animation, the 3D animation herself, which was really, really cool. And also saved us a little bit of money. So.
Yeah, we were just like, you're doing what? Oh yeah, sure. Like you did, oh, that's a lot of me. Okay. And then Setsuya and Vicky's came out. That was a fun song. That was a very cool song. And then merchandise. Some of you are wearing your hat. We have the standees that we ran out of today. We have the canvases that we almost ran out of, and I think we have like 2 headbands left. And then just all this stuff, right? And the reason, from a business perspective, is to pay for the rest. And so we have all these, they're shipping, all that jazz. If it hasn't shipped to you by now, I'm so sorry. But we just got the Fumos, actually, or not Fumos, I'm not allowed to say that. We just got the 40 centimeter plushies.
Legally distinct 40 centimeter plushies.
Legally distinct. In Los Angeles the day we left for Offkai. So I'll announce that later. Don't worry about it. But just like you know nobody's there to ship things out. So we did it, right? Yeah. So basically, kind of how it went was essentially along the lines of expectations, right? Like within the error margin that we set for ourselves, being like, hey, there's gonna be stuff that falls through the cracks, but not too many stuff, hopefully, or too much stuff, hopefully, and we kind of got it. So we mobilized the resources we expected to meet. We were within safety margin, right, of the initial budget, which is great. Siren doesn't care about that. And then, right, like, the room's pretty full. People like the results. So for supporting densetsu.exe and all that. And we will continue to support them financially and also like in actual work. So yeah. And so for the debut, here's the sort of like what goes on behind, like how much does this take, right? We had to hire 5 different people on a part-time or full-time basis to support densetsu during the debut and also a little bit after the debut. We have 1 or 2 temporary sort of workers, not 2 people, but like there's at any time 1 or 2 temporary folks that are like, I'm gonna help out with this, oh, can you help out with that, right, on a regular basis. For example, the convention staff, or not convention staff, our booth staff, and people that are running booth stuff. That's a big part of like, oh, where do you just find, like 8 people? Well, you gotta find them. Some of them are friends, some of them are friends of friends, those kinds of things. Hi, do you want to work for a company? Yeah, sure, that kind of thing. We utilize also 3 different external vendors and companies, like large ones, during the debut to sort of make assets or make sure that things went on time, right, in order to make this work. It's in various capacities. There's not really a general thing I can say about that to like characterize it, but it's not like cakey. Right? Small, real, tiny like, production company type stuff. And then in terms of how much this costs, here's the number. It's upper 5 figures. It is definitely in this like above $50,000 just to get it debut. And then as soon as we were like, okay, it's popular, we unleashed the hounds and spent more than $100,000 because we had more confidence, right, that we were going to get it back, right? So I'm proud to say that Setsuna Production is a debt-free company. But to many business owners, it's like, why aren't you in debt? Just be in debt, bro, right? But yeah, but like the only thing I'll say about that is essentially entertainment business, right? It's a very risky business, and we want to be able to be there for the talents whenever something goes wrong, right? And that requires a lot of like emergency money, essentially, right? Like, oh, you need to go to the hospital. Here's a credit card. Go to the hospital. We want to be able to say that so that they can do things, right? Like, oh, you're feeling a little sick. Why aren't you going to the doctor? What if we give you a credit card? You should go to the doctor, and then they go to the doctor. And that kind of thing, right? Like, I'm not saying that happened, but that's the kind of like, what are the barriers, right, to making sure that you are able to perform the best that you can, and figuring them out. That's kind of what we try to fix that.
No mind me. Sorry, it's been a weekend. It's been a long weekend.
Yep, and that is all for our panel.
Actually put the wrong slide in. Like the audio.
How insanely awesome have your weekends been? I hope you're totally pooped from a weekend as amazing and busy as this one was. After all those concerts and meet and greets, thank you for coming to this panel today. It's especially important to me because I have something big to share. But first, can I introduce myself? Some of you guys probably know me already, but my title has changed just a bit. That's right. Now, I am Ashton Martin, the roller boat race queen of Setsuna Production. I'm so honored to be involved involved with everyone at Setsuna and so excited for what the future may bring. I've never been affiliated with a company before, so this is a new horizon for me, and I couldn't imagine it anywhere else. And my pit crew, I hope you can support me in this new chapter of my journey. No more revving my engine, it's time to hit the gas. And my future pit crew, see you soon. Thank you again, Setsuna, and thank you all for coming.
We signed the verdict from China.
Yeah. Just to be clear, she is not joining as a member of densetsu.exe. That is still a trio project, but we will now be supporting Ashton Martin in her activities.
And this is the real Q&A slide. If you do have a question or anything like that.
Should I have the mic or we just stand up?
Oh, is there a mic set up? Oh, there's a mic over there. Okay, does it work though? Well, let's find out. It works.
Around.
Oh, we got like 20 minutes. So yeah, go for it.
Thank you all for being here. That's a little bit behind the scenes for sure. I was curious, since you mentioned credit card without, what does your structure look like for the talents? Are they contractors like many agencies have, or are they full employees like for all like that?
Yeah, so it's contract. Because multinational, right? Like, I can't afford somebody across the world. And, like, especially with a small company. So, like, there are very realistic problems in the way of that.
Thank you.
So for an aspiring virtual idol group, what do you think we should do in order to set us apart from just being a group of Blue Titan?
That's a very good question. I mean, obviously chemistry is really important, right? I mean, that's a way to stand out. I mean, I think that Vicky and Phoebe have really good chemistry with each other, and you know, generally tends to show well in their performances. But I mean, you know, being an idol group isn't just about singing well together, right? Like, you have to be able to, I mean, put on a whole sort of show of it. So I guess if you're an aspiring virtual entertainer, if you're an aspiring virtual idol group, if you want to make yourself distinct, oh no, I was about to say a sentence that didn't make any sense. Yeah, if you want to make yourself distinct, I guess it's just like, you need to sort of focus on what really makes you, wait, no, because you just asked me how to do that. Oh my god.
It's a very difficult question.
It's a hard question, but I believe in you.
Yeah, so I work in agriculture business, and we've done a bunch of these 0 to 1 in 2-month projects, and I've had to witness all of them crash and burn. What I would like to know from a project management standpoint is, what do you do so that days 61 to 120 don't crash and burn and are successful?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, the densetsu mailbox is in Kansas City, Missouri. There's a lot of them. And yeah, so basically, one of the things that is very, very different about creative pursuits in terms of project management is there's not a sort of like industrial acceptable quantity or something like that, right? You can be like, oh, I need the capability to do X, Y, or Z. That's not really how creative projects, like that's not how the requirement, the output, like the desired output looks like. And so it's difficult to give you a general answer, but it is easier to give you a sort of guideline around like, what do they want to do? What is it okay? What is okay? What is, like, if you had to, you know, like, hey, this artist dropped off the face of the earth, we gotta do something. Those are the kinds of project management things that usually happen, where it's just like, hi, I got really sick, I got COVID, which is the thing that happened during the densetsu debut. People got COVID, and you're just like, well, that's out, right? Like,
Yeah.
Being able to sort of, when I say like premeditating backup plans, right? Having like drop dead dates and triggers and things like that. That's sort of like the planning burden in terms of project management. Is what we've seen so far.
Even putting aside like that kind of stuff, you need to balance their well-being and their happiness as well. Because if a talent is not happy with the way things are going and you're not in regular communication with them, that can cause issues that are invisible to you, and that can cause things to fall apart very quickly. So especially with the entertainment sort of side of things, you need to make sure that their needs are being seen to, that they're being listened to, and that generally everything sort of feels okay. I have weekly meetings. I have weekly meetings with them as a group, and I have weekly meetings with them as an individual, just to make sure that everything is sort of chugging along plan-wise.
Well, thank you.
So my question is mostly about how do you deal with how much would you say your personal connections, your personal unique circumstances are necessary for something like this to function versus how much of this do you think is replicable with people who might have similar industry experience but not necessarily the same connections or level of depth?
That's a good one. So it is I can give you a complex answer. So basically, right, like when people say they can do something, it depends how fast and how much stress, right? So like, for those of you who's here has been involved in a VTuber project, and or like, you know how much like stuff kind of explodes all the time, right? And you know how sometimes some people don't explode ever, and you're like, what? There are a lot of folks that will crack under the pressure, and you need to kind of figure out how much pressure that is. Because, right, from my end, right, from the business side, it's execution risk. It's all about, like, this thing has to be done. And the connections that we have, we know which of them are game to do something in like a week. We know which ones are game to do something in like 3 months. You just give them like, hey, we want to do something in 3 seasons. You good? And they're like, yeah, give me 2 seasons heads up, and I'll get it done in 1 season, right? Those kinds of things are very, very useful to know. It's not that you have the connections, it's that you know also how to utilize the connections. And that's sort of the cycle answer.
Yeah. No. I would also like to add, I do think that in our case specifically though, there were a lot of connections that happened to work really well with this particular group. Because obviously we have background in sort of like Japanese entertainment. You know, I speak Japanese myself. I work with a lot of the creators that Mint likes to connect with, that kind of thing. And obviously in Phoebe's case, I've been working, you know, idol management specifically for a couple of years anyway. So I do think that in terms of the people that we specifically know for densetsu, it was just very fortunate.
Hello. My question was kind of more about Ayami, the second project at Payson. And how you mentioned that caused that crowd. And what I wanted to ask was if when a convention or an event, if or when they kind of fail to acknowledge the popularity of that talent or the group, do you guys kind of consider that like a burned bridge, or do you work with the convention to let them know that, hey, like you need to work on this better because it not only affects the fan base, it also affects the talent?
You good? Oh, cool. No, so that's a great question actually. Sorry, I'm like, just say the meat of it one more time.
So when or if a convention kind of fails to acknowledge the popularity of the talent and it causes a crowd that causes a commotion.
Gotcha.
Is that considered? Would you consider that a burned bridge, or would you want to let them test?
I wouldn't burn a bridge with a convention over like mismanagement in terms of crowding or line stuff. Like yes, we've had incidents where conventions underestimated the draw of the talent because you know sometimes they have to just see it for themselves. But we can use that then for the future because we can take that data and basically say, look, this was the demand this year. Let's look at next year and basically say, this is how we're going to do it this time. We're going to have more space. We're going to have more integrations because that, in a way, overcrowding can give us some additional implicit value because it shows to the con that there was way more demand than they knew, right? Basically, we've proven ourselves to the convention at that point. So I wouldn't burn bridges over it, but I would definitely give a lot of detailed feedback on this is what you messed up. Please don't do that again.
I would also say really quickly, I see a lot of fanime staff here. I'm not going to call you out, but you know, no, it's not a dig against fanime. But the reason I bring that up is because conventions, especially large ones, are multi-headed hydras, and there are a lot of heads on that hydra. So it is sometimes the easiest / only, like, unless you dedicate your life, right, to trying to solve that problem for that convention, the best way is to be like, listen, we're gonna tell you that there's gonna be a problem. It's gonna be about this big, and then the problem happens, and you're like, hi, guess what, right? Next time? And usually they're like, yeah, next time. Sometimes they are able to do that. Sometimes they're not able to improve for next time. And that's kind of where sort of like you figure out, right, whether a convention.
Hello. You mentioned earlier that after the implosion of VShojo, there was well-capitalized interests looking to sort of help pick up the pieces there, and I'm wondering, were those interests looking to back a company like yours to help with that process, or were those your competitors that where you were like trying to vie for their interest, for the interest of the group against? And can you talk a little bit more about that whole situation?
Yeah, so this is the kind of secret that, like, it's not a secret, but like, it's not our information, right? Because it's densetsu's information. We happen to know who they were, like, in the middle of it, but the offer was to densetsu, not us, right? So, they gotta say. Fair enough. Don't ask them, but they gotta say. Yeah.
All right, hello. So this question I probably know the answer to, but I guess I kind of want to speak it out loud to people. Yeah, so the question I want to ask is, if you were to start an idol group, how much musical ability would each member of the group ideally have? Like, what skill sets? What would each person know ideally? I mean, singing, but what else would you say?
I mean, a general sense of musicality is good if you want to do music. So, just, you know, like a good, honestly, everyone has to start somewhere, right? You know, I can't sing, and I wouldn't want to, and maybe I would, maybe in the shower, I don't know. But the point is, if you sing, if you want to go singing into an actual idol project, right? You should have some baseline level understanding of what actually goes into a professional music production. Like it can be as a hobbyist, it can be as a, you know, an indie. Like, I mean, Phoebe was singing on YouTube for like years and years and years before she went even into idling. So
It's a lot of copyright strikes.
yeah. No, I had to untangle a lot of those strikes on that channel, and I still have dreams and nightmares about it. It's really bad. But we got her there. She's fully monetized, so that's good. But yeah, to go back to your question, I think so. Like, you don't have to play an instrument even. Like, I mean, I know Vicky likes the shamisen and stuff like that, but just as long as you have a passion for it, honestly, like if you have a good drive and an interest in singing and you actually want to actively improve yourself, I think that's a good jumping off point.
Awesome, great, thank you so much.
No worries.
I just played idol.
Oh no.
Nice to me.
Alright.
I have stage fright. If you are a baby idol or just easy to group and you wanted to get started, like at the very first step, what do you think is better? Focus on gathering people or focus on gathering funds?
That's a fun one. Yeah, so from my end, the thing, a lot of decisions that we make, right, are, do the people exist? Like, can they even do it? So people, right? There's no idol group without a group of people. But also, like, it's a general piece of advice for a lot of this stuff, right? Business, otherwise, is you gotta do it. You just gotta do it. If it eats at you, you gotta do it, right? Like, if it starts becoming a thing that bothers you over and over and over again, you either let that happen for the rest of your life or you don't.
Mm. Yeah, I would say that a strong community is good to have at a core, but depending on your growth, it can stifle you even if your community is too close knit, for example. But I think that growing a good following is good initially, because just in the long term you can to sound like a horrible businessman here. You can more effectively capitalize on a larger audience if you build it up from grassroots in the long term. So if you pop off, you can kind of, that level of support is good financially.
That person kind of got half of my answer in there. What advice would you give to someone who has worked on a lot of VTuber projects and has a connection to maybe illustrators, editors, so on and so forth, but wants to make the full step into management?
Well, your taxes are going to be crazy. so that's going to be a real constraint, right? Which is just like, all right, now I got a business. Now I got payroll maybe, or do I have to issue 1099s, W9s, all those kinds of things? That's a very realistic part of you do the creative thing. In the book that I just mentioned about music production, entertainment is one of the industries where things happen before a business idea forms, and that's not how the rest of the world works, right? Because the passion is to sort of express yourself, or allow other people to express themselves better, right? Becomes a bigger driving factor than paying your bills for a lot of things. So I would say that there comes a lot of prep underneath, right? That's
I would say as far as independent management stuff goes as well, it's good to have a lot of connections, but obviously you need to be able to make sure that you can execute those connections, pull the right strings, that kind of thing. But if you're going into it, you also need to have a talent that you're managing. So find a person who needs that. But also sorry, I just remember what I was originally going to say, which is you need to make sure that you actually have good experience in time management and workflow stuff as well. You need to make sure that all the stuff that goes into management is stuff that you're ready to execute on. For me personally, I worked as a translator independently, just as a contracted translator for 12 or so years, which involved a lot of stuff that had cross-referential skills, so time management, handling invoices, contract review, that kind of thing. That basically helped me make the jump into talent management, but it is a big jump because you're no longer fully responsible just for yourself. You need to make sure that the weight and understanding is that if you do make a mistake, you're making a mistake for someone else. And that's you kind of got to be in the right headspace to make sure that that's okay. Well, not making a mistake, that's not okay, don't do that.
Thank you.
Hopefully that helped, I don't know.
I had a couple clarification questions. Where did this has to be done in 60 days deadline come from? Was that y'all or something else? And also was the VShoujo project entity, was that Vicky and already, and was the name densetsu.exe or was that?
Right. Yeah. Go for. Okay. Yeah. So 60 days was essentially we asked them oh, when do you want to do? Do you have an idea? And we start throwing around different dates and things like that. There were lots of thoughts around oh, maybe this, maybe that, maybe something else, right? And then the sort of consensus became 60 days is a bit of a crunch, but it'll feel really good, and it'll be in a good essentially a good time for lots of different reasons.
There were certain deadlines coming after that 60 days that we wanted to make sure we hit. So getting the group debut by November was kind of this will make the coming months a lot better, basically, for the goals. As far as, please repeat the final part of your question.
Was the name and
they were going to be the group that would have debuted with VShoujo, it would have been all three of them. The name densetsu.exe was not finalized by the time that the implosion happened. They had a few different options. That's theirs to share.
Yeah.
But
there's video evidence on one of their streams, one of their group streams, of me DMing them the list. They're how should
yeah.
Yeah. So there was a list at the time. They didn't decide at the time.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Hey. So what would you say are one of the
most difficult or unique challenges when it came to managing a lot of legends?
No, that is a lot. A lot goes obviously into the production of a 3D event like that. A lot of it's making sure that the girls can practice together, that kind of thing. They've mentioned this before, that they practiced a lot of the choreography together in Tokyo when they were in Japan together. So we had to make sure that they, were together, that we had all the songs ready. Some of the files and stuff that, we had to really crunch on some of those as well, because like some of the, all the backing instrumentals and stuff like that, we had to get them produced specifically for the show in some cases. But a lot of the challenges that sort of went into producing Legends and was just sort of, I don't know, like I was running around just on the night itself. I was running around making sure that like things went on fire, and yeah. No, I think I went from the backstage to the front of house like 1,000 times that night. But a lot of the pressure for me in terms of management in the moment is just getting through that night specifically, making sure that everything is going good and nothing is going crazy. But obviously we had a lot of really helpful support staff in the form of Oshi Spark, who ran the show and made sure that everything was running smoothly. Did you guys go to the show? Did anyone go to the show? Yeah, thank you so much. We really were happy with the end result. We felt the 3D production was really nice, but overall, it was just, the whole thing was kind of an ordeal. The whole thing was kind of stressful. I feel immense relief right now, and I'm sure the girls do as well. Just that it's over, But also they want to do it again, and now I'm gonna pull my hair out, so.
One anniversary concert?
We'll see. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I was just wondering if there's anything you can talk about setting up a Patreon for the girls too, because I thought it was a really cool idea. How many companies do that?
Yeah.
Like passive income, because you are serving goods too, but that's more work, right? So.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that the sort of the monthly club that we've got was actually one of the things that we pitched to them really early. We spoke to them about that before they agreed to sign with us, before they'd done that thing. We were inspired by the idea of that sort of classic idol kind of thing.
Oh, I remember the slide. I was like, hey, do you remember Miley's World? Does anybody remember Miley World? MileyWorld.com. You got the little signed membership card, like it's pink and all that stuff. And it was just like, yeah, so that, but like.
Yeah, and like even speaking from a strategic perspective, the fact that we use different artists every month, I think it's a good chance to spotlight members of the community. I think it's a good chance for people to get different things every month. And if they don't particularly want, we show a preview every month as well. So it's like if they don't particularly want that kind of thing, that month they can maybe turn it off for that month, see what comes next. But the idea is we want to make sure that there's regular stuff coming out for supporters. We want to make sure that you have something tangible in hand to show that as well. And we want to make sure that, we can make money from it too, to help support. Because the money that we make from the fan club supports the girls directly in their operations. So we really appreciate all the support we have for it so far.
So that's not owned by Setsuna Production, the Patreon?
We run it for them, but like it supports them financially directly. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
I think my question might be a little bit uncomfortable.
Okay.
So last question, brother.
Oh, great. Would things have been easier if instead of them being contractors and them owning their own stuff, maybe it wouldn't have happened, but would it have been easier if you owned?
No, actually. Because we would have to make the choices on their behalf or convince them to be okay with their choices. And on a personal basis, but also, there are ways to be like, how do you want us to utilize your IP, right? Like, it's still yours, but do you want to give us a license to just like, I don't want to ask you every single time I want to put a logo somewhere, but you can tell me where, generally, how I should decide to put logos on things, right? And so, the ownership is not actually, and this is where all the venture capitalists get super mad, ownership of a VTuber doesn't seem to be correlated to net worth on my end. Because they just.
Right.
and then the VTuber.
And the fans go to the reincarnation.
Or maybe they do, or maybe they don't, right? But the point is that the value of that.
Nice.
Now with that depressing question, we're a little bit over time, so thanks for going.